Hello and welcome to this week's Microfile, with a chance to see again some of the best items from the Micro Live series. This week we take another look at the games we've featured recently. Now, games have moved on considerably from the early days of stealing time on a mainframe to hunt the wampus. After all, up until about, 10 years ago, most computing was done in batch mode. Well, imagine trying to shoot the aliens when each keystroke had to be entered on punched card. The ability of the computer and the operator to speak to each other in real time instead of delayed time has allowed many new applications of the technology. So, just to get you in the mood, join Leslie as she plays what must be one of the best games in the world, air traffic control.
Bottom approach, Charlie Tango Sierra 11. Request lower airspace radar service en route for Lucas.
Charlie Tango Sierra 11, Cotham approach. What is your position, heading and level?
Charlie Tango Sierra 11 is 10 miles to northeast of Finningley. Heading 355, flight level 45.
Charlie 11, for identification, turn left, heading 325.
Turn left under heading 325, Charlie 11. Charlie 11 is steady heading 325.
Charlie 11 is identified, 25 miles southwest of Cotham, under radar advisory, flight level 45. Resume under own navigation to Lucas.
Cotham, Charlie Tango Tango 80, air test complete. Request recovery to Cotham.
Charlie 80, set QFE 100... wait. Charlie 11, avoiding action, turn right, heading 030, pop-up traffic at 11 o'clock, range 2 miles, crossing left to right. Charlie 11, correction, turn left, heading 270.
Bottom approach, Charlie 11, we'd like to board on EMS.
Well, I'm very glad this isn't the real thing. I'm not doing very well on one of the RAF's air traffic control simulators. That real air miss was staged for us by two very experienced pilots. They use this facility to give student air traffickers a taste of the real thing. It's driven by a £2 million mainframe computer, and it uses a lot of people as well. To give just 4 students a chance to practice, you need 4 fake pilots, 4 instructors to monitor their progress, 2 supervisors, plus all the hardware and software support staff. The only other way to give them practice is to let them loose in the real control tower here at RAF Shawbury, and then to fly anything up to 6 jet provosts in the sky around for them. Both methods are extremely expensive. It's reckoned to cost around £86,000 to train one air traffic controller. But in a job where one mistake can mean utter disaster, it's essential that the students get maximum benefit each time they practice.
It's a fairly dramatic jump from the theory in a classroom to going into the simulators and actually practicing the skills that we have taught them.
There's a tremendous amount of pressure, isn't there, in that simulator room?
Yes, very much so, and it's because of that that it was recognised that some midway point was needed, and it was identified that possibly microcomputers could bridge the gap.
The Air Force initially approached outside companies to write training software for them, but were quoted prices in the region of £250,000. So, the software now in use was written by the staff at Shawbury on their own home micros.
Turn right, heading 200.
The computer imitates a radar display, and there are various exercises graded to match the stages of training.
Turn left.
The early exercises are simple, such as directing an aircraft to overfly a point on the screen. Well, the exercises are designed to be used by 2 students working together. I've been joined by a student on the current course, Dave Vardy. Dave, you're taking the role of the pilot, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Sounds like I'm taking the role of the air traffic controller. Right, what have I got up on the screen here, and what's it telling me?
And what you're trying to achieve now is that's your aircraft. You're trying to bring him into the centre of the airfield, which is there. avoiding all other aircraft on the screen by at least 5 miles.
Right.
That is a one to conflict with shortly,
Yeah.
but you can tell by the length of the tail that that is longer than that one, that is a faster aircraft.
You've got to take all these things into consideration when
Yes.
you make your decision about which way to turn your aircraft when you take the avoiding action.
You do, but with this facility, there's a pause button, so you actually stop and think of what to do.
Now, of course, on the simulator, you can't do
No,
that. It's
no,
all
no.
happening in real time.
That's right. You've got to decide what to do.
OK, well,
straight
shall
away.
I try and make a decision? The first thing I've got to decide, really, is if these two aircraft were going, where would they actually collide?
Yes.
And then try and avoid that point. Right, I'm going to turn my aircraft left. Can you turn it left for
You
me?
can turn it left. Onto what heading?
Onto what heading, the man said?
stay in
040.
040.
Yeah.
It's now turning left.
And will I now see a result of the decision that I've made?
Yes, we'll also put on fast update, so you can see quickly the effect of your turn on the aircraft.
Right. Did I make a good decision there?
You kept well away from it, yes.
How far away do you actually have to keep to...
You need to keep at least 5 miles.
Can you check that as well?
You can, and a 5-mile ring will appear around your aircraft.
Yeah. So really, you're in control of the micro, whereas the simulator would be in control of you.
Turn left, heading 280.
Since the introduction of the micros, there's been a marked improvement in the pass rate at Shawbury. And at least now, students can make their mistakes in private. The RAF are now planning to install a micro in every control tower in the country.
Here, for example, we have the kit that would be installed down at RAF St Morgan. St Morgan is based in Cornwall, and here you can see the outline of Cornwall, Land's End at the tip, and St Morgan is in the centre of the screen. Their normal day-to-day role is controlling fairly slow-moving maritime aircraft. However, several times during the year they get detachments of fast jet aircraft, and obviously there are different control procedures that the air traffic controllers have to adapt. We can set up any situation that they want, for example 6 tornadoes running in over Land's End, and allow the controllers to practice all the skills and procedures necessary to land those aircraft at RAF St Morgan.
The basic course here at Shawbury lasts just 16 weeks, but the air traffickers that they turn out are acknowledged to be the best in the world. So, in the interests of preserving their reputation, I shall be taking the next flight purely as a passenger. From helicopters to phantoms. This is a new version of a game called Phantom Combat. It was written by Nick Brown and Roger Selby. Roger, first of all, tell me a bit about the game and why the 2 joysticks?
Well, this joystick here is operating as a conventional joystick. This one here is just operating as a thrust lever. But you can see the reaction of the outside world there above the instrument panel.
Fairly sensitive. But that, in fact, isn't the main difference between this and another flight simulator game, is it?
The real difference here is that we've actually linked these 2 computers together so that effectively we have 2 aircraft flying in the same airspace.
Now, by that, do you mean we should be able to see the plane you're flying on Nick's screen?
That's right, yes. And if you look over there I am.
Yeah.
And I'll just do a roll to the right to prove it.
Lovely 3-dimensional graphics there.
And just do a roll to the left.
Yeah.
There we are.
Lovely. Now, is it just one program that's working all of this?
No, it's really 2 programs, and they're sort of meshed together like gear wheels, and this lead between the 2 is the data interchange between the 2 programs.
So, by the same token, we should be able to see Nick's plane coming onto your screen if he's going to go ahead of you, yes?
That's right,
yes. I'm just coming through now, so you should see me appear.
Under or over?
And he should be just coming underneath any second now. There he is.
Yep.
Going into the distance.
Oh, what are you doing there?
I'm just firing at him.
That's very aggressive of you. And I hope you don't carry on like that when you're doing your day job.
My day job?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Captain.
Yes, that's right. I'm a captain with British Airways on TriStars.
Yeah. Well, no wonder
I don't normally do this when I'm flying my passengers around.
It would be the end of in-flight dinners and things, wouldn't
it? That's right.
And what about you, Nick? Have you got any flight experience?
Yes, I used to work in simulation on a tornado project, so I've spent a lot of time in cockpits, but not a lot of time in the air.
Right, but what about, tell me about the graphics, the exterior graphics. How do these compare with the sort of graphics you get in a professional flight simulator?
Yes, professional flight simulator has a lot of large hardware processors to perform the visual calculations. So in this, we have to sort of take a shortcut, if you want, to produce
very sparse,
a
isn't it?
That's right, a stylized view. On the other hand, we get a very rapid response with the aircraft manoeuvring by sacrificing some of the ground detail outside.
I notice also very smooth movement as well, which adds to that feeling of realism.
That's very important. We've tried to capture the sort of realism from the pilot's point of view in this programme.
What do you reckon, Roger? Realism from the pilot's seat?
Yes, it's pretty realistic. Of course, you're not getting all the feedback, the seat of the pants feeling, but the actual way the outside world is moving and the instruments respond is very good indeed.
You've got him right in your sights. Oh no, he's out of your sights again.
You think I should shoot at him?
Yeah, go on.
Let's have a go.
It's tricky stuff. I mean, that's my one complaint. As a beginner, it's very difficult. I couldn't keep it off the ground, off the landing strip very long. Kept crashing.
Yes, well, we cater that. We have a sort of beginner's mode, but it is still really a flight simulation experts program. It's a computer buffs, simulator buffs program, really.
And that's who it's been written for.
Exactly.
Right. Which micros have you written for?
Well, it's for the BBC, all the BBC series, any combination. And it's really what simulator buffs have been asking for years.
And when will it be available?
About 2 weeks' time.
And how much will it cost?
$19.95.
And does that include this data link?
Including the hardware link.
Right,
yes.
OK. Well, you've been flying very helpfully together so far, but of course this is really meant to go into hard combat, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
So,
right, I'm
flying
going to
against
get it now.
each other. Oh, here we go. I'll get out the way, I think. Take it away.
Here we go. No. Where are you, Nick?
You've almost shot me down.
I'm turning for you.
Success could actually go to my head, I think. No, I haven't just developed a natural new talent for this sort of game. I have to own up, I'm cheating. I'm using a device that's to be launched next Monday. It's called Game Killer, and it's a cartridge that simply plugs into the back of the Commodore 64. It costs £14.95, and basically it stops you getting killed. Now, it works like this. Off he goes. These objects on the screen, you can see some of them there, the men, the bullets and the bombs are called sprites, and in the Commodore 64 they can be moved around the screen by some special hardware. Now, normally, every time two sprites collide, it registers in a particular part of the computer's memory, but with Game Killer on, it stops it from registering, and that's why my little man seems to be completely oblivious to the hail of bullets. Whoopsie-daisy, there we go. But in fact, it's not quite as simple as that. As you saw there, I did actually get blown up by an explosion. You see, some of the sprite collisions may be detected by the software, and then Game Killer won't work. Now, in fact, in this game, my bullets collisions... Let's get it back up again. There we are. My bullets collisions are detected by the software, so I can still attack, which is great. But alas, as you saw, the explosions are too, so I can still get zapped by a bomb. So, which games can you use this on? Well, the manufacturers Robtech claim that it will work on virtually any game that uses sprite graphics. But we've found that all these games here, that's including some favourites like Ghostbusters and Jet Set Willy, are either completely unaffected by it or they even crash. Now, when it does work, it means that you can get through to levels of your game that have always beaten you before. You may even discover that some of the promised levels don't exist because the programmer thought nobody would ever reach them.
Leslie there, entering the peculiarly male world of mindless games. But of course, not all games are what they call arcade style. There's another branch of computer games playing which involves adventure and strategy. That's the text game. With very little by way of clues, except for previous experience of adventure games, they can sometimes be infuriating. But our look behind the scenes at the making of Infocom's Spellbreaker helped addicts to understand the game-creating process. The headquarters of Boston software company Infocom. The software writers are holding their regular technical meeting.
Well, I've got this spell in Spellbreaker that's turning out to be a serious source of bugs. It's called Gurgle, and what it does is stop time.
So what's going on internally when you cast the spell? I mean, the status line updates, the interrupts run?
Yeah, everything still happens to you because time is subjective. At least, well, in this game, time is subjective. The status line records your own subjective time, and it keeps advancing. So that's okay. The problem is just that all the interrupt routines, the things that would run periodically, like, you know, 1 million tons of rock falling on your head, have to stop.
Infocom have won many awards for what they claim is a new art form known as interactive fiction. Their products differ from ordinary computer adventure games. The parsers are more sophisticated. That's the bit of the program that understands what you type in, so your instructions can almost be in ordinary English. And they're written to be read like novels. The company was started in 1979 by 10 adventure game addicts, who also happened to be researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
We tried to find something small, something very manageable that we could start with. It wouldn't take a lot of work and would bring in some money and get us going. It turned out that the subject we chose, interactive fiction, did more than just bring in a little bit of money. It formed the basis of a major ongoing business.
Dave Lebling was another of the original 10. He wrote the latest game, Spellbreaker.
Spellbreaker is the third game in a trilogy in which, instead of playing an adventurer, you play a magician. And you advance from being an apprentice to being one of the most powerful magicians in the land.
A game like Spellbreaker is not written directly onto a computer. It starts life as a few ideas jotted on paper.
Initially, it's almost like writing a book. You come up with a plot. This is a civilization founded on magic, and magic has stopped working. And then you start thinking of logic puzzles and things which will advance the plot and at the same time provide intellectual stimulation for the people who are playing it.
The games are coded in a language called ZIL on a mainframe development system. ZIL stands for Zork Implementation Language, Zork being the name of Infocom's first product. And it's a descendant of the artificial intelligence language Lisp.
What makes ZIL special for that is that the language itself knows a lot about interactive fiction. And when I say knows, I mean built into the language are a lot of tools for manipulating objects and characters so that each writer doesn't have to start from scratch. Writers and programmers aren't necessarily the same sort of creatures. And you really want to give people who are writers the best tools you can to help them write interactive fiction. Because, as you say, it isn't like just writing with a pencil on a piece of paper.
But not everyone at Infocom gives the writers an easy time.
Debuggers, testers, their job is to make my life miserable. And in fact, they've done such a wonderful job of it that they have filled up an entire book with bugs from my game. And so far, they have contributed over 250 pages of bugs of my game. Just 5 bugs per page, pages and pages and pages.
Dave, I've got this great bug.
I wouldn't doubt it.
You walk into the octagonal room, and they're describing the 8 sides of the walls and the runes, and it gets to the south wall, and it just goes crazy. It says south, 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 and it just goes on for pages, and it doesn't stop.
What happened is I rewrote the thing that prints which walls have runes on them and tells the directions, and I bet I forgot to make it terminate. So, let me take a look. It's probably something very simple. So, why is it not terminating? It really ought to work. Oh well.
While Lebling wrestles with the bugs, the designers are putting the finishing touches to the Spellbreaker box. Infocom are renowned for their clever packaging, which often contains clues to help solve the puzzles. But strangely, the visuals don't extend to the screen. Infocom games are purely text.
I think there are no graphics in our interactive fiction for the same reason that most novels that you pick up in a store don't have graphics either, which is that the goal is basically for you to use your imagination to picture the scenes rather than trying to depict everything for you. And I think especially since most of the stories are sort of imaginative fiction anyway, I think to some extent if you look at the quality of graphics that you can get on your Apple or your IBM, what you mostly get are cartoon-type graphics.
And a more commercial reason may be that without graphics, a condensed version of the compiled ZIL code can be tailored to run on virtually any micro, just by adding a short interpreter program.
When a new machine comes out, we get a different bunch of people, which are in our microcomputer support group, to write this relatively small program, this interpreter program for that new machine. And in fact, that's what we're doing now for the new Atari machine and the Amiga machine, which Commodore just announced. And in fact, it's a very small process. It's just a couple of months. And once that little interpreter program is written, our whole product line will then run on that machine without modification.
And finally, a sneak preview of one of the problems from Spellbreaker.
In one point in the game, there is an idol, a temple containing a basalt idol of great size and ferocious aspect. And you climb up the idol and look in its mouth. And when you look in its mouth, you find that indeed in the idol is a cube, except when you try to reach it, you find that there's not enough room for your arm to fit between its razor-sharp teeth. So the problem is, how do you get this silly cube out of the idol's mouth? For example, I tried taking it and you couldn't, so I can try open the mouth, and it says, not a chance. I can try hit the mouth with the knife. Now I have a knife. It says, I've known strange people, but fighting a mouth, that's silly. You could try magic. There's a magic spell which opens things. It says there's no hinge there. You can't open something without a hinge. It's not a door. So the problem was how to do it. And in fact, I was stumped myself. I came up with this idea. I invented the idol. I invented its mouth. So I thought about it for a while. I couldn't come up with an answer, so I talked to the other writers and got, as it turned out, some very good suggestions. For example, Steve Moretsky, who wrote some of our other games, said, well, you know, if you yawn, you're going to open your mouth. So that brought up the question of, well, how do you make a stone idol yawn? Which led to yet another possible additional complication, which is that you had to make the idol come to life, to animate, and then make the silly thing yawn. So in fact, that's what we implemented. So I would say Malion the idol. Malion animates an inanimate object. And it doesn't work. A bug immediately. Oh, of course, yes, I know exactly what I did wrong. Stupidly, I'm sitting on the idol, and I brought it to life. Now, if you had a flea on you, you would find it and eradicate it pretty quickly. Well, the idol did exactly the same thing to me. Just goes to show that the writers of the games can't play them any better than anyone else.
Well, there's hope for us all. Infocom don't see the need for graphics in an adventure game like Spellbreaker, but that's probably an opinion based on necessity, since there's very little room available in most home computers for anything but the simplest pictures. But the new generation of home micros with 0.5 MB of onboard memory opens up new possibilities, and there were some splendid graphics in this game, which I reviewed for the Atari 520 ST. Well, it's like most adventure games, but it's got a very sophisticated parser. A parser is the part of the program that understands what you type in. For example, look at this sentence here. Put the key in the hat on the tree stump. Now, taken in isolation, that could mean two things. Put the key that is in the hat onto the tree stump, or put the key into the hat on the tree stump. Now, most adventure games would hiccup loudly, but this one knows from the context there's no hat on the tree stump, so I can only mean one thing, and it interprets it as the blue key is now on the tree stump. It knows what I mean. The game is full of very nice little touches. There's an on-screen editor, which means that if I'd mistyped just one letter in that sentence, I wouldn't have to type it in all over again. And, well, we've all seen pull-down menus, but what about this? They've redesigned them as pull-down scrolls. Very nice. And when you let go of them, they roll back up. But best of all are the graphics. Nice one, Rainbird. Next week's show takes a closer look at the Commodore Amiga and some interesting 3D graphics. Robots and benchmarks also feature in a program that asks, what is power? Until then, goodbye.